Okay, so what I've decided to do is randomly open the course like I usually do, and instead of just going sequentially, I'm going to go ahead and just daily randomly do 10 minutes. Today, Chapter 21, Section 4, The Fear to Look Within. The Holy Spirit will never teach you that you are sinful. Errors He will correct, but this makes no one fearful. You are indeed afraid to look within and see the sin that you think is there. This you would not be fearful to admit. Fear, in association with sin, the ego deems quite appropriate and smiles approvingly. It has no fear to let you feel ashamed. It doubts not your belief and faith in sin. Its temples do not shake because of this. Your faith that sin is there, but witnesses to your desire that it be there to see. This merely seems to be the source of fear. Remember that the ego is not alone. Its rule is tempered, and its unknown enemy, whom it cannot even see, it fears. Loudly the ego tells you not to look inward, for if you do, your eyes will light on sin, and God will strike you blind. This you believe, and so you do not look. Yet this is not the ego's hidden fear, nor yours who serve it. Loudly indeed the ego claims it is, too loudly and too often. For underneath this constant shout and frantic proclamation, the ego is not certain it is so. Beneath your fear to look within, because of sin, is yet another fear, and one which makes the ego tremble. What if you looked within and saw no sin? This fearful question is the one that the ego never asks, and you who ask it now are threatening the ego's whole defensive systems too seriously for it to bother to pretend that it is your friend. Those who have joined their brothers have detached themselves from their belief that their identity lies in the ego. A holy relationship is one in which you join with what is part of you in truth, and your belief in sin has already been shaken. Nor are you now entirely unwilling to look within and see it not? Your liberation is still only partial, still limited and incomplete, yet born within you. Not wholly mad, you have been willing to look on much of your insanity and recognize its madness. Your faith is moving inward, past insanity, and on to reason. And what your reason tells you, now the ego does not want to hear. The Holy Spirit's purpose was accepted by the part of your mind that the ego knows not of. No more did you, and yet this part with which now you identify is not afraid to look upon itself. It knows no sin. How otherwise could it have been willing to see the Holy Spirit's purpose as its own? This part has seen your brother and recognized him perfectly since time began, and it has desired nothing but to join with him and to be free again as it once was. It has been waiting for the birth of freedom, the acceptance of release to come to you, and now you recognize that it was not the ego that joined the Holy Spirit's purpose. So there must be something else. Think not that this is madness, for this your reason tells you, and it follows perfectly from what you have already learned. There is no inconsistency in what the Holy Spirit teaches. This is the reasoning of the sane. You have perceived the ego's madness and not been made afraid because you did not choose to share in it. At times it still deceives you, yet in your saner moments its ranting strikes no terror in your heart. For you have realized that all the gifts that it would withdraw from you in rage at your presumptuous wish to look within, you do not want. A few remaining trinkets still seem to shine and catch your eye, yet you would not sell heaven to have them. And now the ego is afraid, yet what it hears in terror the other part hears as the sweetest music, the song it longed to hear since first the ego came into your mind. The ego's weakness is its strength, the song of freedom which sings the praises of another world. brings to it the hope of peace, for it remembers heaven, and now it sees heaven has come to earth at last, from which the ego's rule has kept it out so long. Heaven has come because it found a home in your relationship on earth, and earth can no longer hold what has been given heaven as its own. Look gently on your brother, and remember the ego's weakness is revealed in both your sight. What it would keep apart has met and joined, and looks upon the ego unafraid. Little child, innocent of sin, follow in gladness the way to certainty. Be not held back by fear's insane insistence that sureness lies in doubt. This has no meaning. What matters it to you how loudly it's proclaimed? The senseless is not made meaningful by repetition and by clamor. The quiet way is open. Follow it happily, and question not what must be so. The function of reason. Perception selects and makes the world you see. It literally picks out as the mind directs. The laws of size and shape and brightness would hold perhaps if other things were equal. They are not equal. For what you look for, you are far more likely to discover than what you would prefer to overlook. The still, small voice of God is not drowned out by the ego's raucous screams and senseless ravings to those that want to hear it. Perception is a choice and not a fact. But on this choice depends far more than you may realize as yet. For on the voice you choose to hear and on the sights you choose to see depends entirely your whole belief in what you are. Perception is a witness but to this, and never to reality, yet it can show you the conditions in which awareness of reality is possible, and those where it could never be. Reality needs no cooperation from you to be itself. But your awareness of it needs your help, because it is your choice. Listen to what the ego says, and see what it directs you to see, and it is sure that you will see yourself as tiny, vulnerable, and afraid. You will experience depression, sense of worthlessness, and feelings of impermanence and unreality. You will believe that you are a helpless prey as to forces far beyond your control, and far more powerful than you. And you will think the world you made directs your destiny. For this will be your faith, but never believe it, because faith makes reality. There is another vision and another voice in which your freedom lies, awaiting but your choice. And if you place your faith in them, you will perceive another self in you. This other self sees miracles as natural. They are as simple and as natural to it as breathing is to the body. They are the obvious response to calls for help, the only one it makes. Miracles seem unnatural to the ego because it does not understand how separate minds can influence each other. Nor could they do so, but minds cannot be separate. This other self is perfectly aware of this, and thus it recognizes that miracles do not affect another's mind, only its own. They always change your mind. There is no other. You do not realize the whole extent to which the idea of separation has interfered with this reason. Reason lies in the other self that you have cut off from your awareness, and nothing you have allowed to stay in your awareness is capable of reason. How can the segment of the mind devoid of reason understand what reason is, or grasp the information that it would give? All sorts of questions may arise in it, but if the basic question stems from reason, it will not ask it. Like all that stems from reason, the basic question is obvious, simple, and remains unasked. But think not that reason could not answer it. God's plan for your salvation could not have been established without your will and your consent. It must have been accepted by the Son of God, for what God wills for him, he must receive. For God wills not apart from him, nor does the will of God wait upon time to be accomplished. Therefore, what joined the will of God must be in you now, being eternal. You must have set aside a place in which the Holy Spirit can abide, and where he is. He must have been there since the need for him arose, and was fulfilled in the same instant. Such would your reason tell you if you listened. Yet such is clearly not the ego's reasoning. Your reason's alien nature to the ego is proof that you will not find the answer there. Yet, if it must be so, it must exist. And if it exists for you, it has your freedom as the purpose given it. You must be free to find it.